Looking for new spring outfits or decor? Shop St. Vinny's for quality clothing, furniture, and home goods. Thrifting's cheaper than shopping at big box stores or online, and April is Earth Month, so shopping at Vinny's is a great way to protect the planet. Plus, support local. All dollars spent at St. Vinny's stay in Dane County. Proceeds go to local food pantries, pharmacies, microloans, housing support, and more. Follow at Vinny's Dane County on Facebook and Instagram to be notified when special events are coming up or to see the latest finds in store.
Hey Madison, it's executive producer Haley Sperling here. I want to let you know that at the end of today's episode, we've got a sponsored segment brought to you by Clean Wisconsin. I'll be chatting with Amy Barrio about some major recent changes to environmental protections and what they could mean for our health, our economy, and the future of clean energy right here in our state. It's definitely a conversation you don't want to miss. So stick around because we'll break down what's happening, why it matters, and what you can actually do to make a difference in our environment's future.
This is City Cast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. Tote. April is here. It's time for our monthly guide on the best things to do and eat this month, plus our themed picks. This month, it's tax season, and we're going to give you tips for having fun while balling on a budget. Joining me today is our executive producer, Haley Sperling. Hey, Haley.
Hi, Bianca. Happy April.
Happy April. And our newsletter editor, Rob Thomas. Hey, Rob.
Hey, Bianca.
How's it going, y'all? How are we feeling?
Ready for spring. I'm here for the sunshine. I don't want to talk about taxes, but I'm here to save some money, right?
Well, I'm pretty excited because my lilac tree is starting to bud. Like there's lots of things coming up for the season, so it feels fortuitous. And we are going to be talking about balling on a budget. We're starting this guide out with some tips for folks because the tax man is cometh and gone. Some of you might be happy with your returns. I've heard a couple of those. And some may have forked out some real money. So looking to budget, the section we're calling on us to find cheap things for y'all to do or even free. I'm starting out with something that I'd like to witness, which I haven't yet, but I have met folks who have won this competition. Madison's Funniest Comic Competition. The first preliminary round kicked off yesterday. It's hosted at Comedy Club on State, and it draws around 60 comics each year who must hail from Wisconsin. And yes, they described it that way exactly. Hail. Just kidding. But yeah, apparently there's competition rounds every Wednesday this month to find out who's the winner, which I think is really cool. The balling on a budget component is it's only $10 for entry to get a chance to see who's bringing the heat in the Madison comic scene. This stands in contrast, obviously, to some comedians, Jerry Seinfeld, with all due comic respect, who last April was selling $800 tickets for a show across the street. So yeah, for sure a different gig, but this is some real deal comedy, cellar style shows with local talent.
I was a judge for that competition many moons ago. And I have to say, two things really struck me. A, the quality of the stand-up was really good. I mean, more than you might expect for a local comedy competition. It was really strong. And secondly, the audiences there are so supportive. Like sometimes you hear about comedy clubs, and if somebody's just starting out and they get nervous, the audience will descend on them like piranha, right? They're like, and the audiences there are so supportive. They want those people to do well. They want to laugh. And so it is a really very fun event. I
have to bring the story up, which you guys have heard before, but I did get called out for positive heckling at a show once at the comedy club, and I didn't even know that was a thing. So there is such a thing as being too supportive. And I heard a different...
What did you say?
It just felt really uncomfortable because the person kind of felt like they were bombing. So they would even ask, like they asked a question and it would be like, you know it, like I was responding. I was kind of surprised that somebody called me out, but yeah, I guess all the questions are hypothetical. Unless someone's actually like you in that shirt, respond to me, I think they don't really want answers to their questions. I learned that somewhat the hard way. Obviously, I just shut up and clapped for the rest of the time.
How are you supposed to know? I feel like that's the most Midwestern thing you could have possibly done. Like, you're being so supportive and then getting shamed for it. That's not nice.
Yeah, that actually upset my friend more than anyone. They're like, why are they calling you out? That's crazy. But I have heard from other comics recently about how it can interrupt the flow. So just being mindful. But I really love the craft and vulnerability of putting yourself out there for those who love a competition. There's also that in this. And there's got to be some schadenfreude to be had. And one of my favorite old dead white guys is Ralph Waldo Emerson. And I've been thinking about his poem with the quote, "The earth laughs in flowers." And I want to be laughing. And I feel like I should also say one of those Wednesdays, April 22nd, is Earth Day. So that's a second bonus. Get outside. That's free. So best of both worlds. Go to the comedy club, see some local talent, and get outside.
Earth is free all the time. What a positive, what a joy.
Yeah. Haley, how are you balling on a budget?
I'm trying to get out on some patios and I'm trying to keep the spending light. So hopefully I'll be out there during some happy hours. Who doesn't love a happy hour? It could be hard to get out there sometimes when the timing is like, this starts at 4:30 and it goes till 5 p.m. and otherwise you're out of luck. But I'm going to do my best to get something called work-life balance integrated into my life. You heard it here first. It may or may not happen. But I want to give a rundown of some of my favorite happy hours, or at least happy hours that I'm generally interested in attending. The first one is Canteen, which is located right off of the square. In terms of timing, their happy hour happens every day from 2 to 5 p.m. And this, I've done it before. They do it as a late night event as well. So from 9 p.m. to close. Here's the deal. It's half off tacos, half off wine, half off draft and frozen margs, and a couple of cheap beer deals. So you can get a snack and drink for pretty good prices. Meanwhile, over on the east side of town, the Weary Traveler on Willie Street also has a great sort of two-pronged happy hour. It runs from 3 to 6 p.m. and then from 10 to close. They call it their magic hour. It's $5 taps, wines, wild cocktails, and a special food menu. Well, one that, Bianca, I'm hoping you're familiar with too, is Tempest downtown. This is one that I haven't been to yet, but it's on my list and trying to manifest it. I really want to go. They run this deal Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m., including $2 oysters, $3 shrimp cocktails, and some more. So you guys know I love some seafood.
Tempest is on my list for top happy hours for sure. I did used to work there, but this is one of the best happy hours in town, hands down. My favorite go-to food is the smokestack. So whitefish salad, lox, trout, caviar, some horseradish cream, and the scallops are so good. But yeah, it's fancy food that you're going to get such a deal at happy hour.
I love that. I'm a seafood gal, so I'm super stoked about that one. A sort of classic one, too, that I've been to a few times, Vintage. They've got 2 locations, one over on East Wash and then another on the west side on Whitney Way. They do these deals Monday through Friday, various discounts and whatnot on vintage taps, rail cocktails, house mocktails, and apps. We love when people include the food in their happy hour deals. And then lastly, I just got to shout out Jenna's downtown. I think they've got one of the best patios out there. They do a happy hour from 4:30 to 6:30, various discounts and whatnot on drinks. And sometimes you get there, they get a little snack bar going. So those are some of my favorites, some that I'm looking to go to. Rob, do you have any favorite happy hours that you frequent?
So let's see. My favorite happy hour, I like Leopold's Book Bar and Cafe on Regent Street. Especially in the summer, they'll block off some of their parking lot and have an outdoor area, which is really nice. And a thing they're starting to do now on Wednesdays is what they call bookstore happy hour, which means if you, and as a nerd, I love this, if you buy a book, you get a free glass of Prosecco.
Oh,
so that's pretty good, right? So you can sit outside, read, drink your Prosecco.
I didn't know that. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
And it's such a good place to look for books. I love like their curation, and I've gotten a couple there. I'll just throw out a newer spot because you already mentioned a few, Haley. Tempest, Jenna's is definitely one. Attico Lounge, which is a newer spot in Madison, but it's over on East Wash and it's got a rooftop bar. And there are spots to sit outside, but I love personally a good tequila margarita, a mezcal margarita. And these are, kind of fancier cocktails, and it's an opportunity to get those and some tasty treats for cheaper. So that's probably up there for me recently. And Rob, how are you balling on a budget?
Well, with gas prices being so high, I'm trying to take my bike out more this spring.
He's rolling on a budget.
That's right. That's right. I have a regular bike and I have an e-bike that I would like to commute with more. But an e-bike, I find it kind of a hassle because if I go somewhere, I get very nervous that it's going to get stolen. So a lot of times I'll take off the battery, which is really heavy, and carry around in my backpack. So it's a little unwieldy. So I want to try using B-Cycle more this summer, which is the bike sharing company. They have stations like all over town: Madison, Monona, Fitchburg, McFarland, Shorewood Hills. And I'm sure you've seen them. They put the bikes out a couple weeks ago, and you just pick up a bike, ride to where you're going, and then drop it off a station there and forget about it. It's really great. And this is the 15th year for B-Cycle in Madison. Their fleet is all electric bikes, which is quite a feat because I know some bike share companies will kind of come and go in cities pretty quickly. So 15 years is quite a feat. And, speaking of biking on a budget, in April, they're offering free monthly passes to anybody who lives or works in Dane County, which is a pretty good deal. So it seems like a good way to try them out and see if that works with your commute or your schedule or how you want to get around town. So, this B-Cycle, and through April 30th, you can get a free monthly pass.
That's incredible. These are really good tips, folks. These are really good tips. And we're all going to be enjoying them. And it's really accessible. I also, as somebody who wants to bike more, if you're not in the biking shape that you once were, per se, like maybe you're afraid of hills, that electric boost really helps.
It's pretty nice. It's pretty nice. Just go doink, and then all of a sudden you feel like an athlete.
Yeah. Well, we're balling on a budget, and we can't keep talking about balling because, y'all, March Madness does actually host its national championship next Monday on April 6th. Just throwing that out there for those of you who are still watching the basketball games this series. It's been kind of devastating for the Badgers, but we've got to watch our competition for next year because we're not out of the fight. But let's keep going on April for things to do this month. I want to shout out Isthmus. Is turning 50 this year. So they're celebrating. They're throwing a bash, a concert at Atwood Music Hall on the night of April 18th. And we'll hear more about this milestone for Isthmus soon, highlights from their 50-year history and journey. I'll be talking soon with Isthmus publisher Jason Joyce and editor-in-chief Judy Davidoff later this month. But I want to get this concert on your radar because it's going to have some iconic Madison musicians. They've got a reunion coming to the stage. The New Breed Quintet is getting back together with special guest Ben Sidran. So first of all, Ben Sidran has a storied jazz career, early playing, writing, and producing with the Steve Miller Band. They were at UW-Madison at that groovy time when sparks are flying, and he's produced and played with so many famed musicians. Like I don't have the time, but Rolling Stones, Van Morrison, Diana Ross. And the quintet is full of local jazz heavy hitters, including Sidran's Grammy Award-winning son, Leo Sidran, on the drums, Paul Daughtry on saxophone, Nick Moran on bass, love ya, Luca Patunde on guitar, and Tim Whalen on piano. I know all of these guys have big fans, and this is going to be an exciting reunion. And then the ultimate fan favorite, Mama Dig Down's brass band. They're releasing their 10th album called Brass Jackson, which I just love that name. And back when they were celebrating their 30th anniversary a few years ago, I talked with band leader, saxophone player Christopher Rock Oley and sousaphone player Eric Jacobson to get their stories and lore about the music scene in Madison over the decades. So I just want to shout out that this is going to be really huge. I went to the Dig Down's blowout celebration. I know they know how to get down. It's in their name. So this is some Madison historic acts who are celebrating another historical local news and storytelling giant, Isthmus.
It's such a big accomplishment for them. I mean, for any organization, especially quote unquote, in these times for news media. It's just such a huge accomplishment. Shout out to Isthmus and everyone who puts in the work there.
And Mama Dig Down's like That's a brass band from Wisconsin who are like seriously respected in New Orleans. They go down there all the time. They play with brass bands down there. Like they're respected. And that new album, Brass Jackson, I believe is their covers of Michael Jackson songs, which is a really cool idea and coincides with there's a big Michael Jackson biopic called Michael that's coming out this month. So perfect timing.
And if folks love the City Cast Madison music, when we were building that, and shout out to Carl Christensen who pulled it all together, some of the inspiration for it was New Orleans jazz and those horns. That comes from that because, man, there's nothing closer to my heart. Explore the wonders of science! Y'all, it's time for UW-Madison's Science Expeditions, the yearly UW campus-wide science open house. Yup, you heard that right. UW is opening its doors to their science labs and research centers to you and your family for free. From April 10th through the 12th, you can adventure around your top-tier public land-grant research university. You can talk with world-class researchers, enjoy science demos, and get hands-on at interactive exploration stations. The variety of programming is amazing. You can learn anything from what the inside of the human lung looks like to the science behind ice cream. You can even meet marmoset monkeys at the Primate Center. Again, UW-Madison's Science Expeditions events are free and open to all. So, see you at the open house? Find the full schedule at go.wisc.edu/science expeditions.
Get excited, Madison. The Sauce Night Market is returning to Garver Feed Mill on Friday and Saturday, April 10th and 11th from 5 to 10 p.m. It's a dedicated space to support emerging chefs, artists, and makers of all kinds, featuring over 50 local vendors. It's a curated market, meaning the Sauce team has put work into bringing you an all-star lineup of diverse vendors, emphasizing quality, creativity, and individuality. The market will feature food from our friends over at Sin City Smash, Mickey's Banks, and Ice Cream Social. And of course, you can bet there'll be some specialty cocktails too. Artist Hannah Brewer will be live painting during the event. The fantastic DJ Dudley Noon will provide the music. Plus, the City Cast Madison team will be there to say hi. The best part, the market is free to attend. That said, guests are encouraged to RSVP at saucemarket.com. Anyone who RSVPs can enter to win $50 to spend on the vendors. So don't miss it. Get your sauce on, and we'll see you there.
Haley, why don't we keep the record spinning? Am I right?
Oh, you are so right. My thing to do this month, which I also think was my thing to do last year in April, but I got to run it back. You guys, it's Record Store Day. We love it. You guys know. And I think a lot of people are in their quote unquote analog era. So now's the perfect time to be celebrating our local record stores. If you don't know what Record Store Day is, I'll break it down for you. It is quite simply an international day of record store celebration. It's happening April 18th at stores across the globe. And it's a time when artists release special edition vinyl records. I'm talking, EPs, LPs, B-sides, whatever have you. And the point is, like I said, it's celebrating these stores. It's celebrating physical media. It's celebrating that community connection that record stores bring to all of the local areas that they serve. And in Madison, we've got several shops participating in the festivities, including Mad City Music, B-Side Records, The Door over in Monona, and Strictly Disc. They throw a big sort of like block party to celebrate Record Store Day, and people are serious over there. People will line up the night before in order to get what they want because, like I said, a lot of these record store days, what is being sold are exclusive to Record Store Day, and they're the limited release and things that drive up reseller prices across the internet. But, it's important to note here that not all stores have the same type of releases. Record stores, they place their orders with distributors and make their own decisions about what titles to bring in based on what they think that their shoppers will like, which is why it's pretty cool, that there are so many different shops in Madison and in our area participating because you could have so many different exclusives at all of these different stores. Rob, I know you've done Record Store Day in the past.
I have, yes. I think my days of lining up are behind me. Well, when it was a little lower key, I would do that. But you're right. People will literally line up the night before, no matter what the weather is. They had a couple of Taylor Swift drops in the recent years, and that line, I remember Strictly Disc went like around several blocks.
Oh, gosh. How about you, Bianca?
That's exactly where I'm at on it. I somewhat avoid big crowds these days when possible, but at the same time, like obviously these sellers go out of their way to make their shop really special and have interesting records you can find. And when I have gone, I normally walk away with used records, like something like a Stevie Wonder or Diana Ross, as we're talking about. I think that a new record that I bought was from Amy Winehouse a long time ago, Lioness Hidden Treasures, which was a compilation album and just really beautiful. Some tracks that aren't, you don't hear all the time. But yeah.
You know, like I said, it really is a celebration of the communities of these record stores. I did go through the releases and I picked out a couple that I thought would be fun for each of you guys. So are you ready to hear what I found for both of you?
My goodness, I feel special.
Matchmaker.
Yes, I picked two for each of you guys. So for Bianca, my first pick for you is a re-release of Jane Aiko's iconic 2017 album, Trip. This is a 2-disc LP picture disc. This is, if you've never heard this album before, after we get off here, you're going to have to. She's a beautiful singer. She's got a great voice. And this album, it is a trip. It's very trippy. It's very melodic and very soothing. I think you would love it. And then my second pick for you is a Miles Davis records. So this is Miles Davis, The New Sound, and this is being released to celebrate his centennial in 2026. And this is the 75th anniversary reissue of his first album as a band leader. So very exciting. This album was originally released back in 1951. So those are my two picks for Bianca. How do you feel?
Incredible. You're a music curator. I think another friend sent me Jane Aiko's music and obviously Miles Davis. This is very on point. Thank you so much.
Yay. Okay. And then for Rob, first up, we've got some classic. We've got Tony Bennett. So a classic, but a twist. It's his MTV Unplugged, which was recorded back in New York City in April 1994 and is being released on vinyl for the very first time this record store day, which is pretty exciting. Tony Bennett has such an iconic voice. It makes me think Rob Thomas, the icons themselves. And then my second pick for you, Rob, is kind of a newer one, Billy Strings. He has sold out multiple shows in Madison. Kind of shockingly, I had no idea who this man was, playing multiple sold out nights at the Sylvie, but apparently a really big deal. And so on Record Store Day, they're releasing his Tiny Desk performance, which was recorded back in November 2025 at NPR Studios in Washington, D.C. So we got a little public media twist there for you.
I've been told by multiple people I need to get into Billy Strings. So
really,
this is yes, that I would like him. So thanks. That's a great
I love
pick.
it.
To be seen, to be known.
Yes.
So lots of really great stuff going on Record Store Day. And of course, Rob, you mentioned, yes, Taylor Swift is coming out with a Record Store Day exclusive. She will be releasing probably endless copies of a 7-inch single of her song, Elizabeth Taylor. So that's what we've got going on for Record Store Day.
How about you, Rob? What's your next to do?
This is the final production of Forward Theater for the 2025-2026 season, and it's a world premiere play production by this playwright Lauren Gunderson, who lives in San Francisco, is a nationally known, celebrated playwright. It's called Lady Disdain. It runs April 9th through April 26th, so pretty much all month, in the Playhouse at the Overture Center. And the premise is really cool. It's basically a twist on Much Ado About Nothing involving audiobook narrators. So, they're sort of adjacent to podcasters, right? And the premise is that there's this best-selling romantasy series, and they need to get the two best audiobook narrators to play the man and the woman to read the book. And they bring these two exes, Bia and Ben, together to do it. So it's described as a fierce and sexy comedy about the hottest books on the market and standing up for those you love, including yourself. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun. very fun way to end another great season from Forward Theater. So that's Lady Disdain.
I'm hooked.
That's a great idea, right? It's a great premise.
The amount of audiobooks that I consume, it's like every single day, every night, and their exes, come on, this is incredible. Let's talk about what we're going to eat this April. What I'm most looking forward to eating this month is close to the definition of a smorgasbord. I was invited for a second year to serve as a food judge at the Wisconsin Chamber Orchestra's Concerts and Cuisine Gala. That's on Sunday, April 26th at Madison Marriott West. And y'all, the way I can describe this event is nothing outside of dying and going to heaven. Like, it's actually insane. It's something where judges come early, and then attendees, which y'all listening could become an attendee if you want to, and enjoy the event from 5 to 8 p.m. But I'll judge like dozens of dishes from Madison's top chefs. And I think everyone that comes to the event has a great time because the food is incredible. The music is great. To describe what it is, the event is a benefit. So I will say it's not part of Balling on a Budget, but it's for a good art cause. The Wisconsin Chamber Orchestra, pays out over $1 million to the performers that come and entertain us each year. So that money's got to come from somewhere. And they describe the event as tasting your way around our city's vibrant culinary scene. And they have 35 chefs from the Madison area, and they really, really crush it. And the gala is really cool. It honestly feels like a reunion for me because of our Thursday food shows, but it's top chefs showcasing their best signature appetizer, entree, dessert, or non-alcoholic beverage. And we've just had so many of the people that are at this gala on the show, so I'm really excited. It kind of is like a TV show competition. We run around and try and judge a bunch of dishes really quickly, and then all of the important guests come and they enjoy the dishes. But it's pretty wild.
That sounds hard. How do you, what are your, not to give any of the secrets away, but what are you looking for when you're judging?
I think texture is something for me. If something is soggy and it's not supposed to be, and if it hits, how flavorful, is it like a wow? Do you get a wow factor when you take the first bite? Is it well balanced? They also ask you to kind of keep in mind what the table looks like and how the setup is. And I'm not going to lie, I was put on desserts last year and it was difficult to eat that much sugar. So you can't even eat it all, but you've got to, use some water in between. But the most fun thing about this event for me, in addition to the food, is that it is dress up. Gala wears. We love a good gala. And I just finished the latest season of Bridgerton. So getting fancied up and going to a ball is pretty in my imaginary factory these days. Also watching Gilded Age and just, taking the time to get nice and go out. So if y'all out there are interested in being a patron of the arts, I feel like this is the place to go if you can afford a little upscale experience that gives back. But in terms of networking, this is really a lot of people that support the arts in Madison, and a food experience to put on your calendar if you want to go to that. Haley, what about you? What are you eating this month?
April is the end of the winter farmers market season and the start of Saturday madness on the square. So we're eating good. We're eating local. We're eating fresh produce this month. Saturdays, April 11th through November 14th from 6:15 a.m. to 1:45 p.m. The Dane County Farmers Market will be back on the Capitol Square. It is iconic Madison Eats. And I wanted to just revive some of the hot tips that we've gotten from past podcast conversations, newsletter interviews with the organizing folks over at DCFM. So get ready, I'm going to rapid fire through these. Get there early, ideally before 9 a.m. when the crowds really roll in. That's a hard sell for me if we're being real, but the early bird does in fact get the worm when it comes to the farmers market. Stay hydrated. Bring a bottle of water. That tote bag that you're carrying around the farmer's market, it's not just for looks, it's utility. Keep some water in there. Stay hydrated. Get cash. Keep your cards safe. Getting there, ditch your car if you can. Parking absolutely will suck, especially if you do get there later in the afternoon. There's always the city garages, of course, but biking, walking, and taking the bus is definitely the way to go if you can. And then my hot tip is take your time, enjoy it, do a lap before you really dig into anything that you're not sure about. Like, vendors don't always set up in the exact same spot week after week. So if you're looking for someone, they might be in a different location than they were before. Many do end up setting up on the same side of the square from week to week, but the location isn't always necessarily guaranteed. And then my last hot tip is don't be a fish swimming upstream, walk counterclockwise.
We heard that in a recent episode also from Paul Guzzi, Smarter Than You Trivia Master. He's had to make a disclaimer. Don't do that. That is blasphemy.
Yeah, that was so funny to hear him because he went back and read the article that I had written on the on the Dane County Farmers Market. And I was like, good to know he's doing his homework. But do you guys have favorite vendors or like anything that you absolutely have to buy when you go to the farmers market?
Sugar snap peas, which are nature's Doritos, I think.
Okay, that's okay. Don Draper, what?
I just love. I mean, as far as like an addictive snack, it's hard to beat one of those big bags of sugar snap peas.
Love it. If we're going vegetables, I really like eggplants. I like walking away with some eggplants, aubergine, and I think flowers. You see so many people with their burlap sacks and the flowers like sticking out, walking away from the market. And they're not the cheapest thing, but that's one thing I want to do this April is recognize how we can cultivate beauty in our own lives. Like we don't have to wait for the outside world to bring beautiful things to us, but to just make your space beautiful. And that's one way I am excited for the spring is to just have fresh flowers in the house. And they have amazing arrangement. Like there are so many different stands that are selling flowers. I like to spread the wealth. That's one of my approaches at the farmers market is if I went somewhere once, I like to give other people my business, but that's me.
I'm so glad you brought up flowers. I was really hoping you would, Bianca. It just makes me happy to think about that. It's just a nice time to bring a little bit of beauty with you from the farmers to your home. It's a nice occasion.
Earth's laughter. I'm corny.
That's right. I was going to bring that up. Yeah.
What about you, Rob? What are you eating?
So there's a new place that I read about a few months ago, and a reader emailed me to tell me that it's finally open, and it's got this great name. It's called Friends Applaud, and it's this new place at 1602 Gilson Street it's just tucked away in Madison's Bay Creek neighborhood between South Park Street and John Nolan Drive. I'd been to that space when it was Funk Factory a few years ago, and then it was Black Rose Blending Company. But it's just this, I mean, if you see the photos on Instagram, it's just in a really adorable little space. I think they can fit at most 30 or 40 people in there. They are putting out a patio, Haley, so when it warms up, you can eat there. It's just a really cute little space, and I know the owners want to sort of like just make this very cozy sort of community hub where people can hang out. And they're opening kind of slowly. They're opening now, offering coffee and pastries from like 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Wednesdays through Saturday, including a special opening celebration cake you can buy for $1 with your coffee. And then April 8th, they're going to start offering a full menu, which includes sandwiches, pizza, and tins of sardines imported from Portugal, which I'm like, okay, I'm open to it. I've never really had sardines as like, a treat, but I'm open to it in this context.
Sardines is the moment.
Yeah, I guess so. You're right. And then they're hoping to get their liquor license, or expecting to get their liquor license by the end of the month to start serving beer, wine, and spirits. And they also plan to have live music and other events. And if you're wondering where the name Friends Applaud comes from, apparently that was Beethoven's last words were, "Applaud, friends, the comedy is over."
Ooh.
That's heavy. That's
I
deep.
know. For
And
such a
it's
fun
cheeky.
place. It's, yeah.
Kind of spooky.
Yeah.
But it's kind of fun. It is fitting, we talked about the celebrating the arts. It's just dramatic. It's very fitting for Ludwig Beethoven. So that place sounds fantastic. It sounds like a totally exciting addition to Madison.
Yeah.
Well, scene. We've got a lot of Lady Disdain and a lot of good arts and music and culture to get into this April, and flowers to smell and flowers to give. Y'all, thanks for your great picks and bringing them to the April Guide.
The comedy is over. Thanks, Bianca.
Is that our sign off now? The comedy is over.
That's all for today here on City Cast Madison. I'm your host, Bianca Martin. Don't forget, you can support this show and get great perks by becoming a City Cast Madison neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. And if you enjoyed today's show, why not share this episode with someone who's always looking for a deal? We'll be back tomorrow morning with more stories from around the city. But first, stay tuned for Haley's sponsored interview with Amy Barrio from Clean Wisconsin. They'll be talking about everything from changes at the EPA to how you can make a difference on climate change.
City Cast Madison executive producer Haley Sperling here with Amy Barrio, communications director at Clean Wisconsin. Hi, Amy.
Hey, how are you?
I am doing pretty well, and today we've got some big topics to cover. There has been a lot of environmental news lately, from this quote-unquote big beautiful bill to changes at the EPA. For folks who haven't been following so closely, how does what's going on at the national level impact us here in Wisconsin?
Well, you mentioned that big, beautiful bill. So that is basically the federal budget that passed about a year ago. And the impacts here in Wisconsin are pretty immediate from that, because basically that took away incentives for clean energy, wind and solar, things like that, and then gave big oil and gas and coal an additional $40 billion in tax breaks. And so that might seem like, well, I don't really know how that impacts me, but here in Wisconsin, things like tax credits for rooftop solar or an EV or for new windows or efficient furnaces, that all went away at the end of last year. And then in a bigger picture way, tax incentives for solar farms or wind farms, that's all going away here in the next year. So what we're seeing is this kind of shift from supporting energy that we can produce here in Wisconsin, like wind and solar, to federal incentives for things that we can't produce here in Wisconsin, like oil, coal, and gas. And so that impacts our energy bills. The estimate is that our energy bills are going to go up by $300 a year in the next 10 years, just because we are kind of hampering that investment in cheaper wind and solar energy.
Wow. So that touches, honestly, just about every part of life here in Wisconsin. I mean, you mentioned shifts towards fossil fuel companies, rolling back on clean energy investments. You mentioned that our energy bills could be going up by hundreds of dollars a year. Not just environmentally, like, how else will this impact people's health and everyday life in Wisconsin as well?
You hear about fossil fuels, and maybe you don't really think about what that means, but it's basically burning things, burning coal or burning gas or burning natural gas. And every time you do that, chemicals are released, and they're harmful. So big swaths of Wisconsin are already in what's known as non-attainment for ozone pollution, for example. When you have bad ozone days, if you have asthma or other chronic health conditions, then that's really harmful. So that is one of the things that people don't always think about. Even just, you've heard about fish limits. You can't eat some fish too often because it has mercury in it. Well, that mercury comes from burning coal at power plants. And we don't always make that connection. You know, it didn't just get into the fish by magic. It is really, it has to do with the things that we do to create energy. So those kinds of decisions being made at the federal level kind of trickle down and impact a whole lot of things that we do and the ways that we live our lives and our chance to be healthy here in Wisconsin.
Wow. Yeah. I guess I never really considered that trickle down effect of, you know, I walk past those like don't eat more than one fish a month sign by the lakes all the time, but never really stopped to consider why it actually got that way. That's wild. And, you know, I understand that Clean Wisconsin is actually suing the EPA over some big things, over rolling back the endangerment finding. Can you explain what exactly that is in plain terms and why losing it is actually a really big deal?
Yeah, so the endangerment finding is actually the EPA's own 2009 finding after years of scientific research that climate change hurts people. Because the EPA's job, its whole role, is to protect public health. Any regulations it comes out with have to be something that protect public health. That finding allowed the EPA to regulate greenhouse gas emissions. It's the major tool that the EPA has to do that. Recently, the EPA said, well, we don't want to do that anymore. So we're going to rescind that finding. So Clean Wisconsin filed a lawsuit in federal court against the EPA because there's no legal or scientific basis for getting rid of this endangerment finding just because you don't want to regulate greenhouse gas emissions anymore. So it's incredibly important, in that big picture fight against climate change.
I often think about the plights of our environment and I get overwhelmed. I feel a lot of anxiety, some grief, and honestly, like fear for the future. So for listeners and people like myself who are hearing all of this and might be feeling similar, what can people actually do right now to make a difference and bring some hope into the picture?
Yeah, and it's easy to find yourself in a dark place. Our whole conversation that we had just now is kind of like, oh gosh. But first, you need to think about how far we've come. There were times in Wisconsin when the Wisconsin River, certainly the Fox River, the Milwaukee River, these were terribly polluted water bodies. There were times when, you'd go outside, you'd be breathing in leaded gas fumes. We've made so much progress since the environmental movement was born, and we can't lose sight of that. And then there are always things that you can do. At Clean Wisconsin, we have an action alert page, so cleanwisconsin.org/action. And you can sign up and here's how you can support clean energy, or here's how you can support legislation that protects our waterways. There are always things that you can do. It's not like protecting the environment is, oh, we protected it and now we're done. We can go take naps now. You're always having to protect the environment, and there are always ways to plug in. And people have a lot of power when they choose to do that. I host an environmental podcast, The Defender, and I'm always talking to guests who are doing all kinds of incredible things all over Wisconsin to make a difference.
One person really can make a difference, even in our big environment. Amy, thank you so much for being here today. This was a really enlightening conversation.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Listeners, if you want to learn more, check out the Defender podcast at cleanwisconsin.org/podcast. We'll drop that link in our show notes too, so you're just one click away. Thanks for listening.